Can you please raise your hand if your great-grandparents, grandparents, parents, or even you were born overseas? Great. That means almost every single one of your families have immigrated to Australia from another nation. In fact, even if your lineage goes right back to the First Fleet, you still have come to Australia from another country. And if we go back another 300 million years, you'll find that Australia was just one part of one big landmass, one big supercontinent. There were no countries, no nationalities, just one big rock. So if you think about it, Australia, or any other country for that matter, doesn't belong to one person or any amount of people, because we all used to share it.
But then that rock fell apart and drifted all over the world, and people started calling the rocks names and claiming ownership of them. And at some point or another, every single family has migrated. We are all sons and daughters of migrants. Even the indigenous Australians are said to have travelled to Australia from Papua New Guinea when the two countries were joined by a sheet of ice.
All of our families have come to Australia for one reason, to better our living conditions. We all came here in hopes of a better life. My grandpa came from Egypt so that he wouldn't be conscripted to the army. My friend's grandparents came from Europe because of the persecution they were under as Jews. Jeffrey's parents came from here for a better education. Some people immigrate from places like London just because they're sick of rain.
But then there are people who are fleeing their countries, not because of the weather, but because they go to sleep every night fearing for their lives. Whether it's because of war, famine, or poverty, these people are coming to us for help. They are coming here so that they can live, so that their children can have the chance to be children, and so that they don't have to go to sleep with the sound of aeroplanes and missiles in the background.
So how is it that I've heard kids saying things like, yeah, stop the boat people, or they're just here for a quick buck? So what if they're here to make money or to have a better lifestyle? Because that's what all our families came here for. It's not like our families came here just because they wanted a change of scenery. Here's an analogy. Pretend you are hungry. Some of you don't have to pretend, but pretend it. That you are hungry. So you go to your favourite restaurant and you order a meal. You eat and now you're full. Then you see another hungry person ordering food. How does it make sense for you to get upset about that when you did the exact same thing? Well, it doesn't make sense, but what would be even worse is getting upset when a starving person orders food. What are you getting upset about? Do you think that if this starving person eats at your favourite restaurant, the restaurant will run out of food? It sounds weird, right?
But this kind of logic is being used in real life. It's being used when we refuse people the chance to have a better lifestyle because we're afraid that somehow they'll take away some part of our own happiness. These refugees, these asylum seekers, are being ignored and turned away. We are turning away the people that are coming to us for help. There was one group of people who came to Australia claiming to be asylum seekers. We sent them back saying that they didn't qualify for our protection. When those people arrived back at the country they had fled from, they were sent straight to death for leaving in the first place. We sent them to their deaths. Why? Because we were afraid that these people would steal away our jobs and leave us all unemployed. Because we were afraid that Australia, one of the least densely populated countries in the world, would suddenly become overpopulated. We were scared, so scared that we would rather those people die than be let in this country. So what if we came to this country for the exact same reason, to better our living conditions? That vote of people was somehow one vote too many. And so they died because we were scared.
Another similar tragic story occurred in 1999. A Chinese woman who was 8.5 months pregnant with her second child arrived in Australia as a refugee. Despite her pleas to Australian immigration officials to be allowed to have her baby here and then go home, she was forced to fly back to China. Never mind the fact that a pregnant woman shouldn't be flying in her third trimester. When she got back to China, due to the one-child policy, she was forced to abort her baby 10 days before she was due. The baby died. Australia's excuse was that they wanted to send a message to the Chinese that they couldn't come here to have their babies. But was sending a message worth that family's pain over the loss of a child? No.
Here's another true story. Last year, our grade met a bunch of kids, wonderful kids. They were around the same age as us, ranging from 12-year-olds to 18-year-olds. Every single one of them was a refugee, and not one of them had come to Australia for just a quick buck. They all came on a small, overcrowded, unsafe boat, and by the end of their journeys, people were so exhausted and underfed that there were babies just falling into the water, and there was nothing their mothers could do but watch on, screaming and crying. Another boy came from a country in Africa because his family feared for their lives. They were almost in Australia when their boat encountered a massive storm. The boat was tossed around and water was flooding the decks. He thought he was going to die, so he went to sleep, thinking maybe he wouldn't feel death. No child should have to go through that, only to be turned back when they arrive at their destination.
But the story that upset me the most was of the sweetest little boy you can imagine. He fled from Syria with his mother and his brother. When he reached Australia, he and his brother were allowed in, but they sent his mother back to Aleppo, the epicenter of ballistic missile attacks. Hundreds of people died there every day, but somehow we thought that his mother didn't qualify for our protection. We separated a boy and his mother. And then we sent the mother back to a village where schools and hospitals are being bombed during the day, and houses full of sleeping civilians are being bombed during the night. He hasn't been in the same room as his mother since he was 8. That was 5 years ago.
And that's when I realised what the problem was. Before then, I couldn't understand how we were sending away these people that were coming to us for help or for a better life. But then after seeing articles in newspapers and hearing conversations of kids in our schools, I started to get it. We don't see it as separating a mother and child. We don't see it as sending people to their deaths. We don't see it as hypocrisy. These asylum seekers have all morphed into one big faceless group, the boat people. We don't know their names. We don't know them or their families or their stories. We don't know if they saw one of their children die from a simple flu or because the water was carrying disease. We don't know if that child saw his best friend crushed under the rubble of a bombed building a week earlier. We don't know if they're hungry. We don't know if they're scared. We have no idea who they are. And that's how it's so easy for us to dismiss them.
I've seen government campaigns making out the boat people to be some kind of terrorist group that wants to take over Australia. And there was the kind of music you hear in horror movies playing in the black background. I have heard people cheering when they found out that another boat of refugees was turned around, when a lot of those refugees are coming from the country their parents were born in. In fact, their parents encourage it, even though they immigrated here just a few decades ago in hopes of a better life.
We think that sending them to a detention centre is a gift. Well, you obviously haven't been to a detention centre. The children describe them as being bleak, like prison cells. You have to wait in long lines for small servings of food, and if they run out before you get to the front, then too bad, you don't eat that day. A man hung himself after being in a detention centre for 1 day, and yet there are whole families that are being kept there for years at a time.
And now, we don't even know what's happening with the refugees that arrive in Australia. We know it's been months since the last refugee has been processed. There needs to be an end to the radio silence, and for that to happen, we need to stop being silent too. The power of the voice of the youth is constantly underestimated. We are the future of this world. We have more power than we know, and it's time we start using that power for something that will change the lives of hundreds for the better.
I feel like in 100 years they will look back on us the way we look back on the communities who thought that people with dark skin were infectious, or that the Indigenous Australians weren't even human. We go to the smartest school, supposedly, in the whole Southern Hemisphere, and supposedly the best school in Australia. So, if we can't empathise with asylum seekers, then who can? If we don't know anything about them, then who does?
There seems to be one thing we haven't been able to grasp since the beginning of time. We are all human beings. We all get scared, we all feel loved, we all want to stay alive, and we all just want a place to call home. So before you refer to those human beings as the boat people, put yourself in their shoes for a second, and maybe you'll see what we see. Maybe you'll see that all of our families or boat people want to.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, you may have gathered that the Year 10 High Resolves Community Action Project is focused on dispelling the myths about asylum seekers and cutting through what the government or anyone says about asylum seekers and possibly even reach towards the more human element of this whole heated issue. So our project is called The Truth About Asylum Seekers. That's on Facebook right now. When you get home, not in school, get on Facebook. If you're old enough, your sevens, maybe you can wait for a year. But get on Facebook if you're old enough, like it up, encourage your friends to like it up, and please do keep updated.